welcome to People of Purpose.
People of purpose.
People of purpose.
People of purpose.
People of Purpose is a podcast of inspiring people whose stories help you see things differently, live with intentionality, elevate the way you participate in the world, and take the necessary leaps in your life to seek and find your passions. Come with us and develop the courage to wholeheartedly pursue your purpose and unleash your truest potential. Hello, Zander Sprague, and welcome to the People of Purpose podcast. It's wonderful to have you here. Super excited to break down your story and just be a part of your enthusiastic nature.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Beautiful. Well, I got to do plenty of research on you, and I have to say you're a pretty multifaceted guy. You have a wide range of backgrounds, and what I really enjoyed, reflecting on was how you've become this leading authority on sibling loss. That's such a specific niche to focus in on. And I love to have guests that bring something really fresh, that's original, that's something that we haven't really thought about or experienced before, because new learning is just so awesome. So thanks for making it on the show today.
Always a pleasure to be here and, help people understand, how they can be epic.
Beautiful. Well, I wanted to get started with just kind of understanding your background and your story. First off, I'm just really curious. You gave me this, you prepared this guest info sheet, and you said you were nicknamed the God of Enthusiasm. Can you tell me about the genesis of that nickname?
Well, that was sort of given to me by a few years ago by someone I was doing work with, Aurora Winter, who just said that when I get on mic, I light up, and it's like I'm in my element, and it's true. I love being able to talk and present to people and share information, and I got really, really excited about it. And I guess that energy is contagious. There are lots of people when I present who are like, "Oh my God, that's great. I love what you're saying. I totally relate to it." And I think when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, you can't help but be enthusiastic about it. Just a totally side story here, but it is interesting. The first job I had out of college, I worked at the front desk of a hotel in San Francisco, and we had National League baseball teams. This is back last century. I'm kind of old, but anyway. So I got to meet all of these professional baseball players, and I'd see them a couple of times a year, and I worked there for a couple of years. So I got to sort of know some of them. I'd just have little brief conversations. But my point was, when I asked them, what is it like to be a professional baseball player? Honestly, they all were like, I can't believe I get paid. I would pay to play, but I am getting paid to play this game that I love so much. And to be able to do that is truly a gift. And so I look at that and go, yeah, it's true. To do what you really want is just so exciting.
For sure. I love to hear that. Yeah. Like when your career and your passions and your purpose are all lining up, you just feel so alive with, budding energy and enthusiasm. It's awesome to see that. Like, you're not old. You said that you're old. You seem like really youthful in your energy. It's awesome to see that.
I mean, I'm not old, but I have to keep in mind that, what the chronological age is versus how I actually see myself are sometimes vastly different. But I think age is honestly a state of mind. I mean, you're only as old as you believe yourself to be. So
yeah, well, you've been young for a long time, so it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe so.
Cool. Well, you're a popular speaker, a trainer, and a host. You've written these books. In particular, recently, you're talking about making epic choices that create an epic life. I'm really excited to kind of break down your story on that, because I think a common thing about our listeners here at People of Purpose is we're looking to figure out how we can take that next step on our journey that puts us in full alignment with our gifts, our authentic nature, what we really want to do and impact, how we want to impact the world, what makes us come alive. And you seem to obviously have been a person that's figured that out, and you've done more than just figure it out for yourself. You've figured out how to help other people to follow that journey as well, taking their epic steps forward. Can you just kind of tell us about your journey? Where did you start to find a sense of purpose on your journey, and how did that kind of unfold over the years?
Well, it's always interesting because when you look back, there's the things that happen that you at the time aren't really aware of, but then when you look back, stuff sort of falls into place, that whole hindsight being 2020. But growing up, I grew up in Massachusetts. My father was a state legislator. So I was in front of and talking with adults from like a really young age. And when I look back, I love being in front of people. That really like energizes me. And so I think sort of from a young age, I enjoyed being able to talk to people and in front of people. And then as I went through school, school I went to, we had a school-wide oral presentation, kind of like within your class, you'd give an oral presentation on something like 5 to 6 minutes. And then within each class, and then you sort of each grade, one person gave a presentation to the whole school. And I always really enjoyed that. I'd be really nervous before I got up, but I really enjoyed that. So I think that's part of that. And then I look back in my whole epic journey. I've been on many epic journeys, some of them continuing, some of them sort of, you just go, I got to do this. And I've been very fortunate to do some really cool things. Like I thought about running a marathon, and I did that. I actually have done 10 halves, 4 fulls, and a 50K ultra. One of those marathons was the 2014 Boston Marathon, which was awesome. Now, I want to be upfront with everybody and say, I did not qualify for that, nor would I ever be close to time qualifying for Boston. I got in because my younger sister, who's a massage therapist, did work for Adidas, and she offhandedly said, hey, would you ever want to run the Boston Marathon? And as a marathon runner, you're like, yeah, hello, like that's like the holy grail. So that was really awesome. And that was such an epic experience to be able to run that marathon. And I grew up watching it, and in my little mind, I'm like, oh, that'd be fun to do someday. Never realizing how incredibly challenging it is to cover 26.2 miles.
For sure. Wow, that's beautiful. What do you think it is about marathons that helps you to like tap into your sense of purpose and help find that joy and enthusiasm?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, it's something that less than 1% of the world has done. So there's sort of that I'm doing something really hard, but I think it's also that that test. I mean, for me, EPIC stands for every pilgrimage includes commitment. And certainly running a marathon is a pilgrimage. It is, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that can happen over the time that you're covering that distance. And I think being able to do that, and then understanding that, we there's that saying that, this is a marathon, not a sprint. But I think that's actually, there's a lot there for people and for your purpose. Sometimes your purpose takes time, and it is a long journey for you. And you have to realize that there are the days where it's easy and the days where it's hard, but you still keep moving forward because you want to achieve this. That's my purpose. I need to do this. There's detours along the way. There's, you know, if we want to use the marathon analogy, there are the miles that are really, really hard. And
Right.
then there are the miles that just fly by.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love that acronym too. Every pilgrimage includes commitment. Of course. Is commitment something you feel like you've always kind of understood and gotten, or is that a talent that you needed to develop?
I think it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Um, no, honestly, because I think there are days where you're really in the zone and it's all working, and there are the other days where you just really have to work hard to get done the task that you have to do, because you're like, I'm just not feeling motivated
Right.
to, you know, oh my God, today I gotta send out 25 emails to different companies or whatever. And you're like, I'm just not feeling that, but you got to kind of
Mhm.
get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So, I guess, yeah, can you fast forward to kind of the process of writing your first book? Was your first book the one about for parents about losing a sibling?
Actually, no, my first book was called Making Lemonade, Choosing a Positive Pathway After Losing Your Sibling, which
Right. Okay.
originally came out in 2008. Then the second edition came out in 2013. And the whole that I'm a talker, not a typer. So the fact that I now have 3 books is it blows my mind, honestly, because I just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I've authored books. If you told me when I was in 18 that I was going to write books, I'd be like, are you like, are you kidding? I hate writing, and I do. I really don't like writing. But what I did was I found the way that I write books, which is to dictate,
Mm-hmm.
um, so that I then have something to work with. And the whole idea for that book came from a comment a friend of mine made from college. Her brother had passed away, and I was seeing her probably about 6 weeks after. We're having a cup of coffee, and she said, I said, well, how are you? She goes, I just came from the bookstore, and there were lots of books on loss of a parent, loss of a child, loss of a pet. But, there was really nothing about loss of a sibling. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And as I was walking away from that, I thought, well, I know that. I know that really well. I could write a book about that. So I did. And
That's all it took to motivate you to write that book?
yeah, like just that idea of, oh, wait a minute. I had thought, oh, I should write a book, but I'm like, what do I know? I mean, I'm not like some, 30-year-old CEO of some Fortune 100 company. I mean, I was none of those. So I'm like, what do I have to say that the world cares about? Well, it turns out I, I knew sibling loss, and I looked at my own experience and said, that was it. It's not a fun experience. Obviously, losing someone's not fun, but more importantly, one of the big things was no one asked how I was. Everyone asked how my parents were, but they didn't ask how I was. And that is a common theme for sibling survivors,
Yeah.
people who have lost a sibling. And I think that it has an incredibly devastating effect on people when your grief is not acknowledged. And the longest relationship we have in our life is with our siblings.
Mm.
And I think we all logically understand that we all die at some point, and there is sort of that age at which, when we all hit it, you sort of say, let's say it's, I don't know, 75 or 80, you go, all right, now is the time of life where it is, and I hate to use acceptable, but I'll say understandable that you might lose your sibling or something. You're like, yeah, we're all getting older. That's going to happen, right? Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make it easier, but you're sort of like, okay, that's when that's going to happen. But when you're younger, unless there's some pre-existing condition or there's some reason that would get you to think, oh, I might lose my sibling, you're not ready for it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. That's really heavy. Would you want to tell the story about your sibling loss and kind
Oh,
of what you
sure.
went through in that process?
Absolutely. Of course, I talk about it all the time. So my older sister, Lucy, was a law student at John Marshall Law School in Chicago. And on December 9th, 1996, she was murdered in her apartment. And, there were many things I thought I might face in my life, but losing my sister was not one of them, and certainly not murder,
Right.
They had the man who killed my sister right away. There was never any question of who did it. And 10 days later, he hung himself in the Cook County prison. So that spared my family what would have been a very public trial. And I say that because at the time, my father was a sitting district court judge in Massachusetts. So judge's daughter gets killed and the man who killed my sister was a convicted felon, had spent 8 of the prior 10 years in Joliet State Prison, had a rap sheet that was about 4 pages long.
Wow.
It just sort of, it's the kind of thing that would go, it would be of newsworthy and interesting to people. So luckily, my family didn't have to go through that.
Oh.
My experience in that, I was living in Boston at the time. I grew up there. Lots of people knew my parents. I'd walk around and people say, oh my gosh, how are your parents? And I get that question. I'm not begrudging that, but no one asked how I was. And I
Right.
started to wonder whether my loss was less significant than my parents. And the short answer is no, it's not. It's just as significant. It's different, but it is equally significant.
Of course.
And a good friend of mine who also speaks about sibling loss, Dr. Heidi Horsley, says, when you lose your sibling, you lose your past, your present, but also your future. There's all those things that you thought your sibling would be around: graduations, marriage, your children, their children, all of these life events. And then you go, they're not there.
Whew. Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
no, it is. But I think it's really, really important. Here's an interesting statistic. In the US, there's over 1 million new sibling survivors every single year. Now, I derived that number by looking at the average number of children through the US Census, and then I looked at the CDC daily death rates and did some math and stuff, and it comes out to over 1 million new sibling survivors. Now, that's across all ages, so that doesn't,
Right.
I can't say, oh, well, 30% of that is people who were 60 plus and lost a sibling. But again, it doesn't matter. Losing your sibling's losing your sibling.
Devastating. Oh, wow. That's heavy. And
Yeah.
how do you feel like the loss of your sister played a role in your purpose journey? Like, how did that ignite a sense of purpose in you?
Because I've done for gosh, coming up on 20 years now, 25 years, I've been working hard to raise the awareness of for sibling survivors, to work with other sibling survivors. You referenced my book, Why Don't They Cry? Understanding Your Living Child's Grief. That book is coming out in the beginning of 2023. That is a book for parents to understand. I'm explaining the sibling survivor experience to parents. And that came because I kept having parents come up and say, I lost a son or daughter, but I have other children and I never see them. I never see them cry.
Right.
And they're not coming to me, and I don't understand what's going on. And my question is, well, how old is your child? Right. And they're like, oh, 15, 16, 20, 30. I'm like, yeah, we're never going to grieve in front of you. And the short answer for that is, and I have really great relationship with my parents, but I saw how much pain they were in, and I was not about to add to that. Now, of course, my parents were absolutely there and would help me and wanted to help me, but I was 28. I was an adult child. I wasn't about to go, Mom, Dad, I really need you. But we worked through that, and we talked a lot, and were able to feel comfortable communicating when we were having a bad day. And I think that's really key is, you're not alone, nor should you try and do this journey by yourself. It's really challenging.
Wow. Yeah, of course. Another thing I've noticed is like this happened you said 25, almost 25 years ago, and you're still writing about this. It's still really top of mind for you. Why do you think that why do you think this is stuck with you as like a really core part of like your message to the world?
I think because I'm able to talk about Lucy, and so I think it's stuck with me because it's part of what I'm supposed to do. When I talk about Lucy, I sit there and say, I'm continuing to keep her memory alive and do good things in her name. So I've got my stuff I'm doing, but I'm a little busier because I'm doing stuff for Lucy. And I think, it's also, I think it's so important to celebrate the rainbow that was, whatever your loss might be, celebrate the rainbow that was that person's life, right? Don't just focus on that dot at the end. It's not to ignore it, but the fact of the matter was, my sister was 30 years old when she was murdered. I got to know her for 28 of those. I can't say I remember the first couple, but that's okay. But there's so much that to celebrate. And my sister was a fantastic person. And that's part of my messaging is like, celebrate the rainbow that was this person's life, because it's so much more rewarding. My family has done many great things in Lucy's memory. And I can tell you, it is so much more rewarding to do good things and help organizations and support organizations that are doing really cool things in Lucy's memory than just going, oh, my sister died. She's not here. It just, I have those moments, but I like to focus on doing good things in her memory. It feels so much better to do good than it does be sad.
Of course. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful answer. I love to celebrate the rainbow that was that person's life. It's a really good thing to latch on to. Well, let's talk about what you're doing nowadays. How would you kind of define the current, phase of your journey right now?
The phase of my journey. Well, I'm still doing work with my siblings, but I'm trying to get to a broader audience because I will absolutely still be with my siblings, but I'll find them and get to work with them through my Epic Begins work. And the story behind Epic Begins with One Step Forward and stuff is also interesting, I think, which is I went to graduate school, got my master's in mental health counseling, had to go through 3,000 hours of internship in order to take the licensing exam. I'm now a licensed professional clinical counselor, but I had to go through 3,000 hours here in California. I finished my hours up in February of 2020. I was so excited. I'm going to take the exam. on all this stuff for 6 years. I've been telling people I'm going to go out and I'm going to speak and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then March 2020 hit, and there was a global pandemic, and you could barely leave your apartment, and you know, like there were no conferences, there was no speaking available, so all of these plans that I had, I couldn't do, or I couldn't do right then and there. And obviously none of us had any idea. You know, we were told, oh, it might be a couple of weeks, might be a month. Here we are, what, 2.5 years later, and maybe we're coming out of this. I don't know. You know, hopefully things are opening up. You know, we have vaccinations, and you know, I mean, it's sort of, look, it's a flu where it's always going to sort of be there, but maybe it will be less bad and all of that. But as I was sitting in my apartment trying to figure out what do I do now, I kind of had this epiphany that Epic begins with one step forward. And there are all of these unbelievable things that I've done. And each one of them began because I thought about something I wanted to do. And then I said, well, how do I do that? How do I run? I can tell you, when I first started running and I thought about running a marathon, I thought, I have no idea how I'll ever run 26.2 miles. Oh my God. Like that just seemed unbelievably overwhelming and daunting, right?
For sure.
What I did is I joined Team in Training, which is the fundraising arm of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And in exchange for raising some money for them, they taught me how to run a marathon. And I rediscovered something in doing that, which is I love structure. Structure makes my life so much easier. They handed me a training schedule and it said, go out and run 30 minutes today. All right, I can do that. I didn't have to worry about how I was going to run 26.2 miles. It was all laid out for me. I just had to follow what I needed to do each day. And then I was able to cover the distance that is a marathon. And I think for all of us, structure is, I think we as adults, we forget about structure. But if you think about your educational career, there was structure in your day. And there's actually comfort there. Think back to high school, okay? When you were in high school, were you particularly stressed about how, after the first week of school, were you stressed about how to get to your second period class from your first period class? Why? Because you knew what you needed to, you know, where you needed to be, when you needed to be there, and how to get there. Right? Now, you might be walking to your second period class and be stressed because you have a quiz or you're not quite done the homework, but that's different. I'm talking about the actual, like, how do I get from point A to point B?
Yeah.
So we grew up with lots and lots of structure. And there was a certain comfort because you just sort of like, I know where I got to be. We get out in the work world and some of our jobs are really structured, but if you're an entrepreneur, there's no structure for you. And you and I were talking, you're like, oh my God, it's kind of a crazy morning. There's all these different things. But if you create structure and say, okay, here's my day, here's what I need to achieve. And from 9 to 10, I'm doing my emails and my phone calls. And then I'm doing a podcast. And then I need to work on my book. I'm going to take 45 minutes to work on my book. Your day actually gets a lot more manageable because you know what you need to do and when you're going to work on it relatively. And you actually get a lot done. And so as I thought about this idea of Epic and that it all begins with one step forward, it's true. You know, all of these things I've done started with literally a step forward. I took a step to learn how to run a marathon or how to write a book, right? How do you start? Well, you start off with writing some words, or in my case, dictating some words. That's, and then you go, oh, well, that wasn't too hard. Let me do the next step. But along whatever your epic journey is, and I'm not here to tell people what their epic is, right? Your epic is your epic. We'll talk about your epic in just a minute, Tenor. But
Yeah.
it is, for some people, it's writing a book or going to school or traveling someplace. And it's these, I really want to do this, but then we don't do anything about it. I'm like, I want people to be out there doing more, right?
Yes. Amen, man.
Go after what you want. Create the structure to figure out how you want to get there. Let's say you're like, I've always wanted to travel to Australia. Well, there's some really easy first steps. All right, well, how do you get to Australia? Best way is probably on an airplane. Okay, how much does that cost? Where would I like to go? And you could start to plan that out, and then you go, okay, I understand relatively the cost, the how I'm getting there, where I want to go. Now let me figure out how I'm going to save the money to do that.
Yeah.
Let me do more research on where I may want to travel. Maybe you reach out through, because we're so connected now with social media. Maybe there's someone that you met on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever. Like all of a sudden, and you reach out and you go, hey, I get to visit this person. That's really cool, and they'll show me around. It's just, and then you go on the trip and you're like, oh my God, that was so epic.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So yeah, whenever you want to do this exercise on the call, I would love to do that as an example, if that's something you want to do.
Well, no, but I always like to ask, sort of turn the time. What is an epic dream or dreams that you have?
I have a dream to create like a living community of people that live in community, where your neighbors are right across from you. They're, your families are living there. It's full of purpose-driven people. So people that want to live an epic life, that want to have an epic impact. And we're kind of redefining how schools work. We're helping each person like heal emotionally and physically. We're doing humanitarian things together in our community. And there's kind of a global member network of this, where we can kind of live in multiple places throughout the year, but our kids can stay on track with school, and we can build like lifelong friends.
Absolutely. And that's great. And then the question is, what are you doing to get there? Because again, I've got all kinds of awesome ideas, right? Some of which I'm like, I have no idea how I would pull that off. I'm like, wow, there's a great $1 million idea, but I have no idea how I'd ever pull that off, even if it's a great idea. And, some of them you're kind of like, well, maybe not. Right.
Right.
And, but there is one thing that I think, 2 words actually, that for you may be really important, actually for everybody, really, really important. Not yet. Not yet should be your passenger on your epic journey. Why? Because have you created your global community? Not yet. You're on the way. It's possible. It leaves open so many possibilities. And as I was writing my Epic Begins with One Step Forward book, is your book out? Not yet. It's coming out, but it's not out today. Doesn't mean if you just say no, it just is such a stop sign. No, it like ends any possibility. Not yet says, yeah, it's still possible. There are not yets that may never happen in my life, but I still am open to those things happening.
Yes.
One of them is I love flying, and I've always thought of getting my private pilot's license. I'm not doing anything actively to take flight lessons or do that, but I remain open. I may never get to that, but it is a big not yet. Not yet. It's possible. And
For
as
sure.
you know, your idea of building this global community, that is not something that happens with just a snap of the finger. There's a
No.
lot of work that goes
Right.
into building that. So not yet, if it isn't, should be your passenger, because it just speaks to the optimism and the possibility. And that,
Yes.
and again, as every journey, there are the detours, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was so clear where I was going. I get my license, I get to go out and speak, and I had to totally switch everything that I was doing. But I think that's awesome. I think sometimes the detours are where the good stuff happens.
Yeah, one of the questions that you teed me up for was how do you turn roadblocks into scenic detours? Tell me more about that.
Okay, I think a lot of times the road our roadblocks, and I'll put that in the quotes, are actually a mirage. We put stuff in front of ourselves that aren't actually reasons we can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they don't actually exist. They literally are a mirage. Oh, I can't do a podcast because I don't have a microphone. Well, although that is accurate, that's not really a roadblock. It is solvable.
Yeah, we have Amazon now.
Right. I can't move to such and such a place. I mean, I'll give you an own personal example. I grew up in Massachusetts and went to college in Southern California. I lived in San Francisco in the early 90s for a couple of years, and then I moved back to Boston. But I knew truly that my heart was in San Francisco. I live in the Bay Area now, have for the last 20 years, but I love San Francisco and the Bay Area. And I'd come back to visit my friends, and all of my friends from college, my best friend from growing up lived here, and I'd come back and I'd be like, God, I really just, I miss this place.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like living in Boston. My family was there, but I hate the weather in New England. I hate snow. I hate humidity. I don't want any of that. But I kept saying, well, I can't move because I don't want to drive my car across the country again. I've done that a couple of times, and the bloom is off that romantic rose of, oh, it'd be great to drive across the country. No, it just wasn't as fun. I've got a good job. I'm in a relationship that's pretty good, but I don't want to end that relationship. Well, in July of 1999, in a 7-day period, my car got totaled. I got fired from my job, and my then fiance broke up with me.
Oh,
So that's a bad week in anybody's book.
For sure.
However, all of these roadblocks that I had put in front of myself for why I couldn't move back to San Francisco, life came and just swept them out of the way. And I said, I'm moving back to San Francisco, which I did.
Yeah.
6 years and 3 hours to the day that I left. Oh yeah, by the way, I was a history major, so I have a freakish memory for dates and times.
6 years and 3 hours.
Yeah. I'm honestly, I didn't think of it, but as I was getting off the plane, I was like, huh. I left, and it literally was 6 years and 3 hours to the day. I left San Francisco at 6 p.m. on October 15th, 1993, and I was back there at 9 p.m. October 15th, 1999. It changed everything. I mean, it was great. So in terms of how to turn the roadblocks into scenic detours, first of all, stop, assess, plan, achieve, and enjoy your journey. Understand that, yeah, stuff is going to happen that's unexpected.
Yeah.
Okay. There wasn't a way around, over, under, past the pandemic.
Right.
None of us could do anything. You just sort of had to say, all right, yes, that is a major detour on what I'm doing. But I'm adaptable, and I go, all right, so I can't be in front of people right now. I will do virtual presentations. I'll do a lot more Zoom meetings and podcasts
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. I will be honest. I'm not like, oh, I hate Zoom, but I would much rather be in front of people live.
Yeah.
It is so much easier. I've done quite a few keynotes where I had to record it ahead of time. And it is, even the God of enthusiasm has a hard
Yeah,
time.
you gotta like really fake it because there's just you in your room.
And then if I'd like to use humor. Do you know how hard it is to tell a joke and not have the feedback? And I always wonder, like, pause for laughter, right? Like you may have that, right? You tell a joke and you're live, and then you can see what the reaction is, and then you know when to go. When you're taping, or a taping guy. So when you're recording it, I could be sitting there thinking that people are going to be laughing at the joke for like 20 seconds, and maybe people aren't laughing.
Yeah,
and then they're
and you're like,
why isn't he speaking? I mean, it's horrible. Think about it.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that must be really, really hard to prepare for. I can't even imagine the awkwardness of yourself with the camera.
One keynote, and someone's like, "Oh, it's too bad you told that great joke, and then you just kept going." And I missed the beginning of what you continued to say, and I'm like, I have no idea how long to pause.
Yeah, it's almost like you need like a sample audience, like a couple of family members or close friends there when you speak.
Yeah, but your family members could find what you're saying hilarious.
Yeah.
And the rest of the audience could be like, they laugh a lot, but
Right.
Or you may say something that really resonates and people are like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, what is the 97-3 rule? You said that's for instantly empowering your perspective.
The 97-3. Look, I am a firm believer that 97% of your day is actually good. And up to 3% isn't so good. Now, yes, there are the days where that 3% is larger. You have a bad day. But by and large, 97% of your day is really good. Focus on that. Okay? For some reason, we seem to focus on the 3% that didn't go right. And it's like, oh, how was your day? Oh, I was just about to get on a podcast, and my internet went down and I was 10 minutes late for the podcast. Oh my God, right?
That actually happened, by the way.
Yeah, it did. It really did. But I'm going to focus today that acknowledge that happened, but there's so many other great things. I get to be on your podcast. I get to share with your audience. That's really good. Let me focus on that. That's so much better.
Super grateful to have you on People of Purpose. Thanks for being here.
Well, of course. But, and part of this came from my internship. I was doing school-based work. So I was with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And a lot of my clients had challenges. Part of their challenge was academics. So I asked them, what's your least favorite subject? A lot of people said math. I can agree. Math was never my favorite subject. But whatever, we'll use math. I'm like, how would you feel if you got a 97 on your next test? Oh my gosh, I'd be so excited. I'd be telling everyone. My parents would be so proud. It would be great. And I'm like, would you be complaining about the 3 points you didn't get? Are you crazy? I got a 97. Oh my God, that would be great. So yeah, why are you complaining about the up to 3% of your day that isn't going well?
Right.
When 97, and there's so much stuff that goes right. You want to know what? I woke up this morning. I got to have my cup of coffee. These are good things, but we somehow conveniently forget them.
Right.
Now, let me give even more of a, perhaps blow your mind kind of mind shift here. I like baseball. I'm not a huge fan, but I like baseball enough. Okay. People make it into the Hall of Fame in baseball if they have a lifetime batting average of over 300. Now, I am not
Right.
taking away anything about how hard playing baseball and getting hits is, right? But imagine, okay, that's like 1/3 of the time you're successful in your Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What if in your life, have a Hall of Fame life, you only had to get it right 33% of the time?
Hmm.
Wow. I mean, that bar
Yeah.
isn't, I only got, you know, I only have to get, let's say I'm working 9 hours. That means I only have to have 3 hours of work in a day. That's good. And
Yeah,
I'm Hall of Fame. That
for
leaves
sure.
6 hours of mess ups, procrastination, whatever. And yet I still had a Hall of Fame day.
Yep. I love that reframe. That's really good. It also just brings me to gratitude. Like it seems like you have with that skill set, you can bring yourself into gratitude quickly because you understand that, 97% of things are actually going really right for you. We just don't pay attention to that. But once you bring your focus to that, it's such an empowering feeling.
I honestly think that it is empowering, and I do have gratitude for all of the great things that are going on that in my life, the what I'm creating, and how lucky I am that I get to share it with the world and come on great podcasts like People of Purpose and share it, and hopefully there's something in the multitude of words that flow out of my mouth that resonate with you and your audience.
Hmm.
I'm always fascinated to find out what it is that what people got from talks that I do or presentations or work with me.
Yeah.
Because it's rarely the thing that I think that they're really gonna like. And if anyone's ever been on social media, you might have something that you think is really cool and it's going to get likes and comments, and it doesn't. And then some random little thing that you just happen to put up gets all these likes and comments and
Yeah.
stuff. And then you're like, the thing I thought would get, look, my book is an Amazon bestseller, and you think that would get lots of likes, and it gets some likes and stuff, but it's not that. But it's, hey, I got a flat tire and I met this cool person who helped me, and that gets and then you sort of like just sharing it. You're not
Yeah.
thinking it's going to do anything. So I'm always fascinated, what people pull out of what I've said.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Of course. So how do you discover, visualize, and realize your epic goals? I think for some people it can feel really abstract, really hairy, just too big to really comprehend. It's much easier to just put your head down and do what you need to do today. I find that a lot of people kind of live in a short-term thinking. How do you commit to this epic goal and make it tangible to today?
Okay, well, I think the first thing that we need to do, write it down. It's a funny thing.
Mhm.
They say write down, right? If you have tasks that you have to do, write them down. It helps you,
Mhm.
right? So absolutely, write down your epic. Think about your epic. What is your epic? How do you think that you're going to achieve it? And here's something that's key. I do not have all the steps for my epic journey right now, but I'm not letting it stop me. There's stuff that I will discover along the way. There's the stuff that I'm like, well, here I am at this step, and I got to figure out how to do this, right? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I've never done this, but I'll figure out. I think we as a species have not gotten to where we are without being highly adaptable and being able to learn new stuff.
Yeah.
So if we kind of remember that we have a kind of backing of, what is it, 1,000,000 years of evolution or whatever, like we can learn new stuff. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Right.
You can learn new stuff. make a plan and get as detailed as you can, because you want to know what structure is your pal. It is your friend. When we have structure, it is so much easier. Understand that, yes, your epic goal is big, but here, I'll just ask you a simple question. Do you like pizza?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you eat a pizza?
One bite at a time.
Well, right. One bite at a time. Unless, of course, you're a teenage boy and your friend is there and you know that if you don't like stuff as much pizza into your mouth as quickly as possible, you'll go hungry. But in general, it's one slice at a time. You're not worried about if you just have your own pizza, you're enjoying that pizza that you're eating right now. You're not worried about the third slice of pizza that you might be having, or your second slice, while you're eating the first one.
Yeah.
Right. And your epic goal it's big. It's easier for us to say, here's where I want to be, and now let me work my way backwards to where I am now.
Right.
And figure out the steps that I think I need to take. The other thing that is essential is tell other people what your goal is, because they will help be your cheerleader, help you keep accountable, and help you, because you may not know how to do something. I don't know about you, but as an entrepreneur, I have spent countless hours trying to figure something out. And then when I reached out to my community and it gets solved in 2 minutes, and then I go, why didn't I do that at 9 a.m. and not at 2 p.m.? I could have saved myself so much time, because I may be struggling with it, but you may have figured that out last week and go, oh yeah, all you need to do is this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think if you share what your epic goal is, other people may be able to help you along the way. And who doesn't need a little help every now and then?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I wanted to shift the conversation as we kind of are on the wrapping up phase of the interview to just overarching wisdom you have on purpose. First off, like, do you feel like you're living life on purpose? Do you feel like you have a sense of purpose? Or how do you interpret the word purpose in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I do feel I have a purpose. I think there are things in my life that have come up repeatedly because I'm supposed to do something about it. That's honestly been the motivating factor for the books that I've written, is because it keeps coming up. And I'm a firm believer that sometimes life just keeps putting stuff in front of us because we're actually supposed to do something about that.
Right.
I went to graduate school because I'm like, I need an advanced degree in order to be able to talk to more of the people I want to talk to.
Yep.
And, I told that story and someone goes, that's honestly why you went to graduate school. I'm like, yep. That was my reasoning for going to graduate school at 45 was, I need this degree because with it, I'll be able to talk to more people. I'll be able to help other mental health professionals understand how to help sibling survivors. But I need to have that degree and I need to have that license, because then they'll listen to me. Okay. My license and my master's do not make me any more knowledgeable about sibling loss. However, it just gives me the credentials that allow them to now listen to me, for me to share that knowledge. So I think that purpose for me is to help sibling survivors, to help parents, to help raise the awareness for sibling survivors, so that conversation is not just how are your parents, but how are the siblings doing?
Yes.
For my epic, right? I just, gosh, there's so much that we all dream of doing. Why aren't we doing that? We need to, you should do it. It is so much fun.
Yes.
It really is. And, the people that I've helped who are like, I'm on my epic journey, and it's so exciting. you can't help but be excited when you're doing something that you've dreamed of doing. And when it starts to happen, you're just giddy. If you have always dreamed of going to Italy and you get to Italy, you're so excited when you finally get there.
Yes. I feel the same way about having a podcast. It's incredible that I get to talk to all these amazing, bright thinkers and communicators that are like living their epic journey. Like that's beautiful that I get to have these kinds of conversations and relationship. And then I get to share that with people, and then those people listen and they tell me about how it's changed their life. Like what a beautiful position to get to be in. Like,
absolutely. And aren't you like, you kind of get giddy about it? Someone you do an episode and you get feedback and people are like, oh my gosh, I really loved what so-and-so. And then you think, I did that.
Yeah. And it wasn't even something that felt like I had to, it wasn't like impossible for me to do. I need a microphone. I just need genuine curiosity. And it's beautiful. Like when you have this intention, you write it down, you tell people you're going to start this thing. It just kind of happens. And then like one guest refers another, and then I spot someone I want to interview and then they show up. It's like, and then I get to like use this advice and my team and my business and my, marriage to better everything. It's what a beautiful thing. Like this is such a microcosm of like, how this stuff works.
It is. And here's the thing. It's not nearly as hard as people make it.
Right.
We're making stuff so much more difficult. To start a podcast, you need an idea, you need a mic, and you need whatever podcast platform you want to put it up on, and just put it out there. Hopefully, people will start to listen to it. It is really hard to get those subscribers and stuff and figure out all of that part, but the actual creation isn't hard. Yeah.
And there's people that want to help you. If you're doing something that's aligned to your gifts and brings you joy and people see you light up with enthusiasm, they could be like, hey, I know how to drive traffic to something. Let me plug in and see how I could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength to say, here are the things that I'm good at, and I'm going to spend my time doing what I'm good at, but I am not as good at marketing. So let me find someone who that is their strength. Lean into what you're good at, understand what you're not good at. And yes, it is absolutely, as entrepreneurs, you're like, I want to build a team, but I'll bring people on once I have money. But the fact of the matter is sometimes you have to spend a little of your own hard-earned money to hire someone to help you out, because that frees you up to do what you need to do. They're doing something that you're not as good at. Their purpose is they live and die for marketing. Boy, are they good at it. And you're like, I'm not really as good at that. Right. So let them go out and market my podcast. I'm going to focus on finding guests because that's where I'm strong.
Yeah. It's been beautiful to see the help that shows up when you just start saying, this is who you are, this is what you're doing, this is how you're moving your life forward. People want to step up and help that. And now I've got like a small team that does everything for me. They talk to the guests beforehand and get them scheduled. They prepare the guest documents. They edit the episode and make the sound really good. They put it up on all the platforms. They make the social media posts. It's like, what a cool thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And you get to do what you love, which is do the interviews.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a beautiful experience, like hearing your journey and hearing some of the things that you have learned along the way. Like I love the 97-3 rule. I love like your story about, I love the acronym, like every pilgrimage includes commitment. Like what a beautiful thing that for me to take away from this, to celebrate the rainbow that was that person's life. Yeah, I love the overwhelming positivity and enthusiasm that you bring to your story. It seems like no matter what the ups and the downs are, you always have a positive way of like bringing things home in you know, the roadblocks becoming these scenic detours. You're really good at and the not yet rather than like no. You're really good at like keeping the positive psychology forward, and then you know that is a really powerful thing to figure out how to stay positive amidst like all the tides of what happens around us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, we don't have to turn far to hear all of the bad stuff.
Right.
I'm kind of on a mission to focus more on that 97% that is good, you know.
Yeah, I love that. Well, before we sign off, do you want to share with people how they can get plugged into what you're doing?
Absolutely. If you go to zandersprague.com, that's ZANDERSPRAGUE.com. You can read more about me. You can get a free copy of Epic Begins, the ebook. You can get a free copy of that. You can find me on, you know, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You know, Instagram, it's epic_begins. I am all about helping companies and individuals step into their epic, because I am a true believer that epic choices lead to epic lives.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, yeah, thank you so much. Like I said, you've impacted me for sure in this hour. I'm excited to hear, you know, how you've impacted others once this episode goes live. Yeah, and thank you for doing what you do. It's really nice to have this, you know, this like lighthouse, this beacon of brightness, despite how gloomy and negative and whatever the world may look. There's always Zander smiling and saying like, you know, come with me on the epic journey.
Not yet. Have I done that? Not yet.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being on the show today. Yeah, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, your positivity, and yeah, excited for what is still to come in your very young life.
You bet. Thanks so much.